Beneath the stillness of sleep, your brain never truly stops. When your body relaxes, your heart rate slows, the lights go out, and all conversations have ended. A different kind of dialogue quietly begins within. It's not a dream. It's the process by which your mind continues to process, connect, and reprogram everything you've absorbed throughout the day. The words you hear, the images you see, the thoughts you allow to linger, all become the raw material your brain faithfully records and stores deep in the subconscious. You think you're in control while awake, but what you absorb with your eyes open is just the surface. The truly important part happens when you're no longer consciously aware. Your subconscious doesn't ask for permission, it only requires prolonged exposure. And here's the unsettling truth. It doesn't judge what's right or wrong. It doesn't question logic. It doesn't verify the truth of the messages you let in. It simply records precisely and faithfully. If during the day you let yourself live in environments filled with judgment, negativity, comparison, and self-sabotaging inner talk, then at night your body may rest, but your mind cannot. Your brain is still strengthening that toxic data stream, converting it into subconscious truths. You're unknowingly programming a faulty operating system. And then you wonder why you wake up heavy, stuck in the same behavioral loops with outdated beliefs that no longer serve you. On the other hand, if you spend your day exposed to inspiration, wisdom, encouragement, if you speak to yourself with compassion and clarity, then your subconscious continues building upon that material during sleep. The difference between someone who wakes up inspired and someone who wakes up in doubt doesn't lie in the quality of sleep. It lies in the content embedded right before the sleep begins. This is why some people feel more stuck the harder they work, not because they lack effort, but because they carry a mind that's being reversed every night. They don't realize that the videos they watch before bed, the draining conversations they endure, or even that quiet inner voice are all reactivating when they're no longer alert enough to resist. You cannot expect a different tomorrow if you continue letting your mind recycle the same old, negative, limiting inputs. What you feed your mind while awake becomes the invisible framework it runs on while you sleep, and that framework eventually becomes behavior, decisions, emotions, and your life. Every day, you have two choices. Either you intentionally curate what your mind consumes, or you drift and allow yourself to be shaped by default. If you don't choose what to focus on, the world will choose for you. And the world doesn't care whether you're happy. It simply reflects back whatever you allowed in. You don't have to control everything. But you do need to be conscious enough to realize that every exposure, even a few seconds of mindless scrolling, a passing comment from a loved one, or a headline flashing across your screen can seep into the deepest part of your mind if repeated often enough. Take a moment to think about yesterday. What did you feed your mind before sleep? Was it encouragement, clarity, gratitude, or was it exhaustion, criticism, or meaningless visual noise? You can't expect to wake up with a new mindset if you keep uploading the same mental files. The subconscious doesn't joke. It only records. And if you truly want to change your life, you can't just change what you do while awake. You must change how you fall asleep, not with a new pillow or ambient light, but by standing guard at the door of your mind before sleep begins. What you let your mind hear, see, and feel in those final moments will continue to grow in silence, shaping who you become without anyone noticing. Your mind doesn't rest while you sleep. It records. The question is, what do you want it to remember? There's a subtle truth that most people overlook. The things you hear when you're most exhausted are the ones that sink deepest into your subconscious. That's not when you're listening with reason. It's when you've let down your guard, opened the softest gate, the most impressionable state. And the danger is the sounds that slip into your mind in those moments are often not things you actually chose to hear. They are words of blame you didn't have the strength to deflect. They are the video you forgot to turn off. The conversation you didn't want to be in but stayed anyway. The quiet voice in your head whispering, I'm not good enough. When you're drained, you're no longer alert enough to resist, and in that very state, toxic input begins to take root. The mind doesn't wait for ideal moments to store information, it simply stores. And the times when you're most relaxed, most fragile, most vulnerable are the exact moments when your nervous system lowers its defenses and allows everything straight into the inner core. No matter right or wrong, no filters. That's why the words you hear when exhausted have the potential to become part of your identity if they're repeated more than once. Have you ever woken up and felt lost, not knowing why you lack motivation, confidence, or inspiration today? It's not because of a specific event. It's because for many days prior, you allowed the wrong messages into your mind, especially when you were at your weakest. You let someone tell you that you're not enough, and you didn't push back. You let that voice in your head repeat, maybe I don't deserve this. And you didn't question it. All of that was stored and became a hidden program steering your behavior little by little. Be cautious of what you hear when you're tired, because it's not just background noise. It becomes the foundation of the beliefs you're building without realizing it. Be cautious of the words you say to yourself when you're drained, because that's when your subconscious is listening the most intently. Don't let a bad day become a declaration you repeat for years to come. Don't let a single insult become your inner truth. And don't let exhaustion make you nod in agreement with things you should have rejected. Start with one simple but powerful act. Before you fall into exhaustion, prepare a positive affirmation you can repeat. Write it down, place it by your bedside, or set it on your phone so that when you no longer have the energy to think, it's still there like an anchor to keep your mind from drifting into darkness. It could be something as simple as, I am becoming stronger every day, or I am worthy of good things. Repeat it gently, even if you don't fully believe it yet. The subconscious doesn't need instant belief. It only needs repetition. What's truly frightening isn't the loudest noise you hear. It's the sound you hear most often, especially in your most vulnerable state. If you don't consciously choose what stays in your mind, fatigue will choose for you. And the choices made in exhaustion rarely serve your growth. Your life isn't programmed during your best days when you're alert and full of energy. It's programmed in those moments when you're falling apart, weary, fragile, but still listening to something. So from today onward, you must guard that moment, not with harsh control, but with subtle intention. Place a voice by your bed that you want to believe. Cut out the content you don't want to keep. Walk away from conversations that shrink you instead of sitting through them just to be polite. You can't stop yourself from feeling tired, but you can decide what you will hear when you are, and that's how you change your destiny one night at a time. There is a moment in the day that almost everyone misses, the moment right before you fall asleep. It's not just the time when you lie down in bed. It's the moment when your mind is at its most open, most receptive, and most impressionable. In those final minutes before you lose consciousness, the brain enters a transitional state where brain waves begin to slow down and the layer of logical awareness starts to recede. It is precisely at that moment that anything you feed into your mind gets deeply imprinted into your subconscious, as if you're programming yourself. And the ironic part is, most people don't choose what gets recorded. They let it happen by default. What if I told you that in the last 5 minutes before sleep, you are deciding how you'll feel when you wake up? If the last thing you take in is negative news, a chaotic video, or a conversation that replays your worries, your mind will spend the entire night processing, reinforcing, and validating that data. Sleep isn't a pause button for life. It's a process of deep transformation. Whatever you give your brain before sleep becomes the raw material it works with all night long. And if you choose nothing, the world will choose for you. Social media will pull you into cycles of comparison. Invisible worries will resurface automatically. The critical voice in your head will drown out every moment of stillness. Then you wake up not knowing why you feel weak, lost, or uninspired because you handed over your mental programming the night before to things that never deserved that power. Now imagine instead going to sleep with a powerful affirmation, I am building a stronger version of myself, or quietly reading a few lines of gratitude, visualizing tomorrow's goals with a sense of realism so vivid it feels like it has already happened, or simply listening to a soft piece of music that carries an inner sense of uplift. These things won't instantly turn you into someone else, but they send a clear signal to your brain. This is what I choose as my foundation. You don't need much. You just need intention. A little intention before sleep can change how your mind functions afterward. If you go to bed with optimism, clarity, and belief in your direction, your brain will work to deepen and solidify that belief. And you'll wake up with an internal system that's reinforced, not depleted. So starting today, create a small ritual before sleep. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just needs to be a conscious choice. Pick a phrase you want to believe and repeat it. Write down 3 things you're grateful for that day. Visualize the version of yourself you're becoming and live fully in that image for a few minutes before closing your eyes. Or if you prefer silence, simply breathe deeply and ask yourself, what do I want my brain to work with tonight? Remember, you don't have to control your dreams or force yourself into fake positivity. You only need to choose the right input to give your central processor before you drift off. And just like that, you are rewriting your internal operating system. Not through exhausting effort, but through wisdom before rest. You can't change the entire world in one night. But you absolutely can change the quality of that night with one small act repeated daily. And from there, you won't just wake up differently, you will become someone different. Someone who knows exactly what they are programming and no longer lets life happen by accident. There's something most people overlook. How you feel every morning doesn't just come from how well you slept. It comes from what you planted in your mind before you closed your eyes. It's not random. It's a consequence. Because every piece of content you consume at night, the last sentence you read, the last video you watched, the final emotion you allowed yourself to feel, all of it silently decides what you'll believe to be true the next morning. Belief doesn't erupt in a single moment. It's built slowly, night by night, through what you repeat. And if you consistently fall asleep to things that make you feel anxious, doubt yourself, or shrink into smaller emotional states, that's exactly what you'll carry with you when you wake. It doesn't need to be dramatic, just consistent enough. A person with strong inner belief isn't someone who woke up determined just once. It's someone who built a series of quiet but intentional nights. They guard the moments before sleep like a sacred ritual. They don't allow toxic content to enter their mind when it's most vulnerable to programming. They don't end their day with self-criticism. They don't let future worries pollute the final minutes of the present. And because of that, each morning they rise with another layer of belief unseen, but steady. If you often wake up doubting yourself, lacking energy, feeling confused about your direction, don't rush to blame yourself for being weak. Go back to the origin. What did you feed your mind last night and the night before that and all the nights leading up to this one? Because those things, quiet and undramatic, have been forming an invisible mechanism that activates every morning you wake. Try to remember the last time you went to bed with clarity, when you just read an inspiring book, when you closed your eyes after journaling with gratitude, when you chose quiet over noise. The next day you were different, weren't you? You didn't need a specific reason. You just felt lighter, clearer, more grounded. That's because the belief you carried that morning was planted the night before. And if you understand this, you'll stop treating nighttime content as harmless entertainment. You'll see it as seeds being sown into the soil of your subconscious. What you plant, you harvest. You cannot plant doubt every night and expect to wake up filled with conviction. You cannot feed your mind toxic comparisons and expect to love yourself in the morning. Belief doesn't come from hollow affirmations. It comes from what you regularly expose yourself to, especially in your most impressionable state, right before sleep. Starting today, choose what you allow yourself to hear, see, and feel in the last hour of your day. Put your phone down 30 minutes before bed. Choose content that reconnects you with your core values. Write down one thing you did well, remind yourself of who you're becoming, and remember, this isn't a small act, it's the act that will decide the kind of person you'll be 1 month, 6 months, or a year from now. Because every morning you wake up, you're not just beginning a new day, you're continuing a program that was written the night before. And if you want belief to be the foundation of your tomorrow, you must choose each line of tonight's script with care. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be intentional. And the beautiful thing is, you can begin tonight with one small but right choice. And just like that, you'll stop living on random repeat. You'll begin to rewrite yourself one meaningful night at a time. With each passing day, you are being programmed, either by yourself or by the world around you. There is no neutral zone. There is no unaffected state. The question isn't, are you being programmed, but rather, who is holding the pen to write that program for you? And the unfortunate truth is that most people live as if they have no choice in the matter. They allow their minds to become a playground for all kinds of external sounds, images, words, and messages. And then one day they wake up no longer recognizing themselves. They no longer know what they truly believe, where they want to go, or what they deserve, because the internal program they're running was never written by them. Imagine you are a sophisticated machine with powerful hardware in the form of your body and a core software system that is your mind. Every thought, every belief, every behavior you exhibit today stems from a line of code written sometime in the past. Maybe it was from childhood. Maybe it was from binge watching videos while exhausted. Maybe it was from someone you trusted but never took the time to re-examine. And that software keeps running without your awareness. It influences how you react, how you speak, how you make choices. You're so familiar with it that you mistake it for, this is just who I am. But it's not. It's a pre-programmed version, not a consciously constructed one. If you don't become aware and take action to rewrite yourself, you will always be manipulated by your environment. Social media will teach you how you're supposed to look. The news will instill in you what you should fear. Thoughtless criticism will convince you that you're not enough. And then you act smaller, you dream less, you settle for what's beneath you because you think this is just reality, when in truth, it's a reality someone else installed in you, not one you deliberately chose. The good news is you can rewrite yourself. Starting tonight, you don't need to wait for something monumental. All it takes is beginning to feed the right content into your awareness before you sleep. That's the time your brain is most receptive. As if a door opens into your operating system, let a positive audio recording play softly in your ears. Read over the things you're aiming for. Close your eyes and visualize yourself in your more mature, stronger version. And most importantly, repeat. Because every new program requires consistent reinforcement. You don't need to fight the world. You just need to reclaim the remote control of your own system. Once you master what you allow into your mind, you will gradually master the entire direction of your life. No more living on autopilot, but living by design. No more being dragged along, but choosing your path. No more borrowing someone else's voice, but speaking with your own. Clear, powerful, and consistent. The world out there will always be loud, but you are no longer its passive product. You are becoming the author of your own reprogramming through small, steady choices made each night. And when you do this long enough, the world may no longer recognize you, but you will recognize yourself more clearly than ever before. There's something science has proven. yet most people still ignore. Words, especially words that are repeated in a semi-conscious state, have the power to shape your entire life. Not just because we become familiar with them, but because the human brain, when entering a relaxed state before sleep, becomes more sensitive to sounds and messages than at any other time of day. That is when the boundary between consciousness and the subconscious is thinnest. And it is also the moment when you can rewrite your entire perception of yourself or be unconsciously rewritten. When you hear a phrase often enough, your mind begins to accept it as part of reality. No need for evidence, no need for debate, just repetition. The phrase, "I'm not good enough," if heard every night before sleep, whether from yourself or someone else, will soon become truth in how you behave, choose, and set expectations for yourself. On the other hand, if you whisper to yourself every night, "I'm improving every day. I deserve good things. I have the strength to overcome," these words won't just stay in your head. They'll go deeper. They become the foundation of your entire emotional operating system. You don't need to shout. You don't need to convince the whole world. You just need to convince yourself by repeating the right things in the right state. And the moments before sleep are one of the most powerful gateways for doing exactly that. That's when your brain enters alpha waves, then theta, two frequencies that are the most receptive to all forms of information. You don't even need to try to memorize. The brain will do it for you. But that's also why if you repeat negativity, doubt, or fear, your brain will store them as commands as well. This isn't theory, it's a practical tool, and you're already using it, whether consciously or not. Each night, what do you allow your ears to absorb? Is it negative news, internet arguments, unresolved worries? Or is it an audio recording with positive, intentional words? That answer will determine how you feel about yourself tomorrow and for many days to come. No one can control every thought in your head, but you can choose what to repeat, and that very choice creates the difference between someone who repeats fear and someone who repeats belief. You don't have to believe in yourself from the start, but if you're brave enough to repeat the words of a version of you that's stronger than who you are now, then over time you will become that very version. Starting tonight, choose 3 positive phrases that align with the person you want to become. Write them down. Read them slowly once the lights are off. Let the quiet become your amplifier. Let your own voice become the rhythm that reprograms your mind. And do it every night, even if just for 3 minutes, because in today's chaotic world, the one who knows how to repeat the right thing is the only one left with the power to own themselves. Remember, your words repeated in a semi-conscious state are not just sounds. They are commands you're sending to the entire system that governs your life. And if you choose the right words, you'll no longer be a victim of tomorrow. You'll be its designer, silently but unshakably. You might have a burst of emotion, shout into the mirror that you're going to change your life, feel completely motivated for 5 minutes, only to fall back into old patterns the next day. Not because you lack willpower, but because you're relying on intensity when in fact the nervous system doesn't respond to intensity, it responds to frequency. True change doesn't come from moments of extreme determination, but from small actions repeated consistently. Frequency beats intensity in every area. You don't need one inspiring night, you need consecutive nights in silence where you whisper the right things to yourself. You don't need to scream, "I will succeed." You just need to program your brain every night with the words you want to believe and do it day after day. The nervous system learns through patterns. It recognizes what is familiar, and what's familiar gets prioritized for storage. If you do something only once, no matter how powerfully, it's still just an exception. But if you repeat it, even gently, even for a few minutes, it becomes the new normal. And that new normal will shape your behavior, your reflexes, even your physiology. So pay attention. What are you repeating every day? Is it self-criticism, unconscious negative statements, or is it small, steady determination? A single affirmation each night, a clear visualization of the version of you that you want to become, a recording playing in the background as you drift off. It doesn't need to be flashy. It just needs to be consistent, because you don't reprogram your brain with motivation. You do it with habit. Just like building muscle, no single workout is strong enough to transform your body forever. But the consistent accumulation, day by day, week by week, that's where the magic lies. Your mind is no different. Don't rely on short-term inspiration. Build long-term structure. And that structure begins with frequency, not impulse. Once you understand this principle, you'll stop feeling guilty when you don't feel strong enough. You only need to remind yourself, I'm still repeating the right thing, and that's enough. Even if today you're tired, even if tonight you're not sure you believe what you're saying, say it anyway, repeat it anyway, because the nervous system doesn't require intense emotion. It only requires consistency. Frequency creates neural pathways, and neural pathways become default routes, and default routes lead you to a new reality. It's a path no one sees, but the results are impossible to hide. One day, someone will look at you and ask, how did you change like that? And you will know it was you every night choosing to repeat the right thing when no one was watching. And that is when you truly gain mastery over yourself, not through emotional highs, but through steady, relentless frequency. Most of the limitations controlling your life don't come from circumstances or other people, but from an old program silently running in your brain. These lines of code were deeply embedded from childhood, from moments when you were rejected, diminished, or ignored. And if you don't change them, no matter how high you set your goals, you will eventually return to the same old loop: self-doubt, procrastination, and fear of outcomes. Evening, especially the moment right before you fall asleep, is when the window to access that inner operating system opens. The brain enters a state of high receptivity, and if you know how, you can rewrite yourself with new messages. There's no need to force old pain to resurface. You only need to plant simple words at the right moment. I am capable of change. I give myself permission to move forward. I am no longer my old version. At that moment, those words are no longer just words, they become code. If repeated correctly and consistently, they begin to overwrite the old errors. This isn't magic. It's a mechanism you can activate every night without strain or control. As long as you let the right signals play in that relaxed state before sleep, your biological system will automatically process and store them. And the next morning, you won't just wake up with a rested body. You'll wake up with a self slowly recovering and being reprogrammed. Don't underestimate the final moments of the day. They are not meant for draining your energy on mind-disrupting content. They are the time when you can send one last command to the subconscious, the part of you that will work through the night, and it will do exactly what you tell it to. You simply need to decide, will you leave in your mind a negative reminder or a positive affirmation? An old fear or a new shift? You don't need to be certain in that moment. You only need to plant the right seed and let your mind do the rest. That's how you begin to rewrite yourself, not through exhausted effort, but through well-timed choices. Tonight, you can continue living by the old program, or you can begin rewriting it all in silence, in the dark, but with a power no one can ever take from you. Identity is not fixed. It isn't something born once and lasting forever. Identity is the result of thousands of signals you send to yourself every day through thoughts, words, and actions. If you repeat enough negativity, you will become the embodiment of it. But if you are conscious enough to repeat what builds you up, you will begin to transform yourself from within. A correct affirmation, if repeated in a mindful and consistent state, is not an empty phrase. It is the seed of a new identity. Many people believe that simply having faith in something will bring success, but the truth is, identity doesn't form from fleeting belief. It forms from intentional repetition. You must say the right thing and say it until the subconscious no longer doubts it. You must make that phrase the background music behind every choice you make, every behavior you display. I am disciplined. I am persistent. I deserve good things. You don't say these to convince others. You say them to remind your brain that this is the new map it needs to follow. The reason an affirmation can change your life is not because it holds magic. It's because your brain is designed to reinforce whatever is repeated frequently. If you've ever blamed yourself daily, if you've ever said things like, I'm not good enough, I always fail, then you've seen the negative effects of repetition. So why not use the same mechanism to rebuild yourself? Choose one phrase, just one, that is clear, powerful, and aligned with the person you want to become, and let it become the mental soundtrack of your mind. When you repeat that affirmation every night just before sleep in a semi-conscious state, as your mental defenses begin to lower, you are planting it into the deepest layer of your mind. And if you continue doing this long enough, the subconscious will no longer distinguish between what you say and what you are. It will begin to act, respond, and make decisions as if you already are that person. That's when transformation begins, not through forced effort, not through waiting for external validation, but through the high-level consistency of this simple act. Do not underestimate the power of a single sentence. And don't believe you need dozens of lines to reprogram yourself. One sentence, if it's right enough, strong enough, and repeated enough, can change how you see the world and how the world responds to you, because identity doesn't live in what you try to show outwardly. It lives in what you continually tell yourself when no one is watching. And the world always reflects the exact identity you carry every day. You don't have to be perfect to begin. You just need to be honest with yourself. Choose a phrase that aligns with the journey you're heading toward and commit to it as if your life depends on it. Because in truth, it does. That phrase will become your internal compass, guiding every action you take. And once it's embedded in the subconscious, it will help you hold your standard regardless of fleeting emotions or temporary circumstance. This is not blind positivity. It's a tool for building a new self. If you've ever been wounded by negative words repeated over and over, then you can also be healed by the right affirmations repeated with intention. The difference lies in whether or not you actively choose again. Your identity is not written by your past. It is being rewritten every day by what you say to yourself. And you can begin again tonight with one simple phrase, one that is true enough and repeated enough. Life doesn't change in the morning when you wake up. It changes the night before, when you're still choosing what will enter your mind before sleep. Many people think tomorrow is a fresh start, a chance to do things differently. But in reality, tomorrow is simply the result of everything you planted today, especially in the final hours before you fall asleep. You may not realize it, but that's when your conscious mind begins to lower and your subconscious starts recording. Everything you hear, think, and feel gets stored to become the silent undercurrent steering the next day. If you go to sleep in chaos, negativity, or exhaustion from the content you just absorbed through social media, movies, arguments, or unresolved worries, then that is the material being handed to your subconscious to build a heavy tomorrow. And if you repeat this night after night, you're slowly programming a life you never consciously chose. You're not living by your dreams, you're living by the echoes of unconscious habits. What matters isn't how bad your day was, but how you end it. Because how you end it will determine how you begin again. If you spend the last 5 minutes of your day feeding your mind with a true affirmation, a vision you want to move toward, or a deep sense of gratitude, you won't just sleep better. You'll be sending a clear message to your subconscious. This matters. This is what I choose to carry forward. And with that, it begins to reshape your inner world even as you sleep. The subconscious doesn't respond to what you say in the morning when you're rushing through a to-do list. It responds to what you leave behind when your mind begins to quiet, when the logical defenses thin out, and everything sinks straight into the deepest layer. Those final minutes before sleep are where you program yourself most powerfully because it requires no force. It doesn't need you to struggle. It only needs you to choose the right input and let your natural system do the rest. You can use that time to plant anxiety, doubt, self-criticism, but you can also use it to plant hope, strength, and a new identity. You can choose to play a track of affirmations. You can write a few lines of gratitude. You can close your eyes and visualize the person you're becoming step by step. Each of these small actions is not meaningless. They are lines of code you're feeding your brain so that tomorrow doesn't begin in vague fatigue, but with a clear signal of who you are and how you want to live. When you understand this, you no longer let your life operate on randomness. You no longer let today's mood dictate tomorrow. You consciously select the content entering your mind before sleep because you know it's the software that governs your behavior, emotions, and energy after you wake up. The difference between someone who lives reactively and someone who lives intentionally doesn't begin in the morning, it begins the night before. If you truly want to change your life, don't wait until exhaustion to feel determined. Don't think that because today was a failure, tomorrow will automatically be better. Start tonight, when everything has settled, when the outside world no longer asks anything more of you. Treat those final minutes as a sacred ritual to begin rewriting yourself piece by piece in the direction you've chosen, not the default you've endured. Because your life tomorrow isn't decided by luck, by others, or by circumstance. It's silently but powerfully programmed by what you leave in your mind tonight. And if you do that long enough, deep enough, you won't just change a day. You'll change the trajectory of your life, starting from the moment you dare to choose a new thought about yourself before closing your eyes. My dear friend, if you've made it this far with me, it speaks volumes. You no longer want to live a life controlled by old habits, old voices, and old fears. You want to be intentional. You want to live with clarity. You want every day you wake up to be an upgrade, not an unconscious replica of yesterday. And that doesn't require a grand revolution. It starts with the small choices you repeat every night. One correct affirmation, one clear visualization, one quiet minute for your mind to rest and reprogram. You don't need more motivation. You only need one right habit maintained quietly, consistently, because every major life change begins in the silence within. So tonight, before you turn off the lights, before you put down your phone, before you surrender to sleep, ask yourself softly, what am I feeding into my subconscious? And if the answer isn't aligned with the life you want, then choose again. Start tonight. Thank you for giving your time, your presence, and your trust to walk this path with me. I do not take it for granted. I see it as a genuine connection between two people searching for a deeper, clearer, more meaningful way forward. If what you've heard today awakens something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Live it, share it, and let every night you fall asleep be a quiet declaration, I am becoming the best version of myself. Wishing you deep sleep, a light heart, and a tomorrow stronger than ever before.